Mira Chen had exactly one job: play the intro, hold the chord, stay quiet. That was it. Those were her instructions, delivered in a hurried whisper by Mr. Dalton, the music teacher, 30 minutes before the spring talent show began. He had grabbed her arm near the water fountain, his clipboard tucked under one elbow, his expression somewhere between apologetic and desperate. "Tyler's sick," he said. "Fever. His mom just called. I need someone to cover the piano accompaniment for Jenna's number. 4 bars, maybe 5. Just the main melody, nothing fancy. Can you do it?" Mira had looked at him, then at the floor, then back at him. "I guess," she said. That was how it started. The Westbrook High Spring Talent Show was not exactly a glamorous event. It took place in the school gymnasium, which smelled faintly of floor wax and old sneakers, no matter how many paper flowers the decorating committee taped to the bleachers. Folding chairs had been arranged in rows across the gym floor. A wooden stage had been pushed against the far wall. On it sat an upright piano that had survived at least 3 decades of student performances, its keys slightly yellowed at the edges, but still perfectly tuned. Mira sat in the front row of chairs reserved for performers, her hands folded in her lap, watching the stage. Around her, students stretched their voices, adjusted their costumes, rehearsed their opening lines. She wore what she always wore: dark jeans, a plain white blouse, her hair pulled back into a low ponytail. She hadn't planned to be here tonight at all. She had come to watch. Now she was performing. The thought sat uncomfortably in her chest, like a stone she had accidentally swallowed. Mira had been playing piano since she was 5 years old. Her grandmother, Nai, had started her on simple nursery melodies and folk songs in their small living room on Clover Street, sitting beside her on the narrow bench, guiding her fingers with patient, gentle hands. Over the years, Mira had moved from beginner books to classical pieces, from simple scales to full compositions she sometimes wrote herself in the margins of her school notebooks. She practiced every evening, sometimes for 2 hours without realizing it. But she had never played for an audience. Not a real one, not one with strangers in it. Her stutter made social situations difficult enough. Standing at the front of a room, drawing people's eyes, that was something she had always avoided with careful, practiced effort. She took the seats in the middle of classrooms, answered questions in short sentences, walked the less crowded hallways. It wasn't that she was sad about any of this. It was simply how she moved through the world, quietly, carefully, taking up as little space as possible. The gymnasium began to fill. Parents and younger siblings claimed the bleacher seats. Students filed in from the halls. Mr. Dalton paced near the side curtain with his clipboard. The lights above the stage brightened. Mira watched a group of 8th graders perform a comedy skit. She watched 2 juniors do a magic act with a deck of cards. She watched a girl named Priya sing a pop song in a clear, steady voice that earned enthusiastic applause. Then Mr. Dalton appeared at her elbow. "You're up next," he said. "Just go sit at the piano. Jenna will come out after you. Play the melody once through, nice and gentle, and she'll start singing on the second round, okay?" Mira nodded. "Simple," he reminded her. "Background, just the notes." She nodded again and stood. The walk to the piano felt longer than it actually was. She pulled out the bench, sat down, adjusted it slightly, and set her fingers on the keys without looking at the audience. She could hear the murmur of the crowd settling, parents shushing younger children, a few scattered coughs. The lights above her were warm and a little too bright. She played the opening melody. 4 bars. Clean, simple, exactly as instructed. Then the audience stirred. Not from the music, from something else. Mira heard it before she understood it. A low, collective murmur rippling through the gymnasium, followed by a sharp burst of feedback from the speakers near the curtain. The sound system let out a screech that made everyone flinch. Then silence. Then nothing. Just the dull hiss of a microphone that had gone completely dead. Mira's hands stilled on the keys. Behind the curtain, she could hear voices, urgent and overlapping. She caught fragments. The whole board just went out. And Jenna's track is gone. And I don't know. Just give me a minute. She waited. The audience waited too, uncertain and restless. Someone in the back laughed nervously. A child somewhere in the bleachers asked loudly why the show had stopped. and his mother hushed him. Mira looked at her hands on the keys. She thought about getting up. That would be the sensible thing. Walk back to her seat. Wait for Mr. Dalton to sort things out. Let someone else handle it. She wasn't the performer here. She wasn't even supposed to be on stage. She was a substitute, a placeholder, a temporary fix for a problem that had now become a larger problem. She thought about her grandmother. Not the advice she had given. Not yet. Just her face, really. The way Nai looked when Mira played, even during the simplest pieces. Not proud exactly, or impressed. Just present. Fully, completely present, as if the music had reached her somewhere deeper than her ears. Her grandmother had been in the audience tonight. Mira had spotted her earlier, already seated in the third row, wearing the blue cardigan she saved for good occasions. She had waved. Nai had waved back. Mira looked down at the piano keys. Then she began to play. Not the simple 4-bar melody Mr. Dalton had assigned her. Not anything she had been told to play. She began the way she always did when she sat down alone at home in the evenings, with a single note held just long enough to feel the room, then a second, then a phrase that opened like a door slowly swinging wide. It started quietly, a melody built from the same basic tune she had been given, but stretched and deepened, its edges softened, its center made fuller. She had never played this particular arrangement before. It came from somewhere in the middle of her, assembled in real time from years of practice and listening and private hours she had never planned to share with anyone. The murmuring in the gymnasium fell away. Not all at once, in layers. First the back rows went quiet, then the middle, then the front, until the entire room had gone still in a way that felt less like silence and more like attention, the particular, held breath quality of people who have forgotten they were going to do something else and are now simply listening. Mira did not look up. She moved through a passage she borrowed from a Chopin nocturne she had learned at 13, folded it into something warmer and more plain-spoken, then let it find its way back to the original melody, like a traveler returning home by a longer road. Her fingers moved without her consciously directing them. This was the thing about playing alone for years. The music stopped belonging entirely to your mind and started belonging to your hands as well. Behind the curtain, Jenna Alvarez had been standing with her arms crossed, irritated and anxious, waiting for the sound crew to fix the board. She heard the shift in the audience before she understood what had caused it. She moved to the edge of the curtain and looked out. For a moment, she stood there without speaking. She had known Mira was quiet. Everyone knew Mira was quiet. But this, she watched the girl at the piano, hunched slightly forward, her eyes down, playing something Jenna couldn't name, but felt somewhere behind her sternum. This was not what Jenna had expected. She had expected background music, safe, forgettable background music. She let the curtain fall and stayed where she was. Mira played for about 4 minutes, though it felt to her like much less. She moved through several ideas without forcing any of them, let each phrase suggest the next, and allowed herself to end the same way she always ended when practicing at home, not with a grand gesture, but with a diminishing softness, the last chord pressed gently, held, and then released into the quiet of the room. She lifted her hands from the keys. The gymnasium was absolutely still. For exactly 2 seconds, she would count them later in her memory, no one made a sound. The child in the bleachers who had asked why the show stopped did not ask anything now. The parents who had been checking their phones had put them away without realizing it. Then someone in the back began to clap. Then several people at once. Then the bleachers, then the floor seats, and within a few seconds, the applause had spread across the entire gymnasium in a warm wave that built steadily. Not a performance moment engineered for reaction, but something more genuine, the kind of response people give when they haven't planned to respond at all. A few people stood. Not everyone, but enough that it meant something. Mira sat very still at the piano. She did not stand or bow or raise her hand. She looked once at the audience, briefly, and then looked down at her lap. Her face was warm. Her heart was moving quickly. She felt exposed in a way she had not expected, but underneath the exposure was something else, something smaller and steadier that she couldn't quite name yet. Mr. Dalton appeared from the side of the stage. His expression was not the one she had expected. He wasn't upset. He wasn't scrambling. He simply looked at her for a moment, nodded once, and began leading the applause from the wing. Jenna came out from behind the curtain. The technical issue had been fixed, the soundboard was back, but it was clear from the audience's reaction that the moment had already passed through something and come out the other side. Jenna walked to center stage, waited for the room to settle, and performed her number with the backing track restored. She was good. She had a real voice, practiced and confident. The audience applauded warmly for her too. But people kept glancing back at the piano, even after Mira had returned to her seat in the front row. After the show, the gymnasium loosened into the familiar chaos of a crowd dispersing. Parents collecting children, students reuniting with friends, folding chairs scraping against the floor. Mira moved toward the exit, her hands tucked into the front pocket of her jeans. Someone touched her arm. She turned. It was Jenna. Jenna Alvarez was not the kind of person who sought Mira out under ordinary circumstances. They weren't unfriendly. They simply moved in different orbits, had different schedules, sat at different tables. Jenna was the kind of person whose name appeared on bulletin boards and school announcements. Mira was the kind of person who read those announcements without seeing her own name on them. "Hey," Jenna said. "Hey," said Mira. Jenna was quiet for a second. "I didn't know you played like that." I usually just play at home." Jenna nodded slowly. "Well, you were really good." She paused, and then said something Mira hadn't expected. "I'm sorry, by the way. Earlier, backstage, when I was annoyed about the sound thing, I was kind of short with everyone, including you. That wasn't fair." Mira looked at her. "It's okay." "No, but it wasn't." Jenna hesitated. "This might sound random, but I've been trying to write a song. For like 6 months. I have the words, but I can't figure out the music. Would you ever want to?" She trailed off, then tried again. "Would you want to work on something sometime? Together?" Mira thought about it for a moment. Not long. Just a moment. "Yeah," she said. "Okay." Jenna smiled. "Cool." She glanced back at the emptying gymnasium, then at Mira again. "You really were incredible, by the way. Actually." She walked away. Mira watched her go, and then turned back toward the exit. Her grandmother was waiting just outside the gymnasium doors, standing in the fluorescent light of the hallway, her blue cardigan buttoned to the top. When she saw Mira, her expression did not change dramatically. She did not gasp or rush forward or make any kind of scene. She simply looked at her granddaughter with the same, full, quiet attention she always had, the kind that said everything without needing to perform anything. Mira walked over to her. Nai reached out and took Mira's hand in both of hers. Her hands were small and warm, and slightly rough at the knuckles, the way they had always been. She squeezed once, gently. She didn't say anything, and she didn't need to. They walked out of the school together into the mild spring evening, past the parking lot filling with cars, past the paper flowers a student had dropped near the side exit, past the voices of families finding each other in the dark. Mira kept her grandmother's hand in hers. That weekend, she sat down at the piano in the living room, as she always did. In the quiet of a Saturday afternoon, no audience, no pressure, the afternoon light coming in sideways through the window. She played a few scales to warm up, then let her hands find something without deciding what it would be. The difference, she noticed, was not dramatic. She was still the same person, still quiet, still careful, still herself. But something had shifted. Not loudly, not in a way anyone would necessarily see from the outside. It was simpler than that. She was playing, as she always had, but for the first time in a long time, she was playing because she wanted to get better. Not for a show, not for a teacher, not even for her grandmother, though she loved her more than she had words for herself. She played for a long time that afternoon, and when she finally stopped, she sat for a moment in the stillness, listening to the last note fade into the quiet of the house. Then she smiled, turned the page of her notebook, and began again.